Hey there, fellow deep divers. Ready to explore some really thought-provoking ideas today?
Always up for a good mental workout.
Okay, great. So today we're cracking open this book from like way back in 1910
Oh, wow. Okay.
called The Science of Getting Rich. It's by
Yeah.
this guy, Wallace D. Wattles.
Interesting.
And now, before you think we've totally switched gears and become a finance podcast,
Right.
let me be clear. This isn't about like stock tips or, any of that kind of investment stuff.
Right.
It's more about the mindset around wealth creation. We're going to be exploring these principles that Wattles laid out over a century ago
Okay.
and seeing if they still hold up in today's world.
Yeah. It's amazing how these older texts can still be so relevant, especially
Yeah.
a book written in 1910. Like, think about it. That was a period of massive change. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing. Society was transforming.
Yeah, for sure.
And what's really fascinating is that Wattles was part of this new thought movement. They were all about, the power of thought to shape reality.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got to admit, when I first saw the title, The Science of Getting Rich, I was like, a bit skeptical.
Yeah, I can see that.
It sounds kind of like one of those get-rich-quick schemes,
Right.
But as I got into the material, it's clear that Wattles is going for something much deeper. Like right off the bat, he makes this bold claim saying everyone has the right to be rich.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he argues that it's not about greed or anything like that. It's about living a full life, expressing your potential. But is it really a right, though?
That's a big question, isn't it? And it's one that we're still grappling with today. On the one hand, Wattles argues that limiting anyone's access to wealth is basically like restricting their ability to fully express themselves and contribute to the world.
Yeah.
But it also forces us to confront some really complex issues. Like, how does this idea fit with things like wealth distribution,
Right.
social justice, ethical considerations?
Right. When everyone is, striving for affluence.
Exactly. It's a complex issue with lots of layers.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's that whole science thing, right?
Yeah.
Wattles presents this like certain way of thinking and acting almost like a formula
Okay.
that he believes guarantees riches regardless of your background, your talents. And a part of me is like, where's the equation for this?
Yeah.
Is this like some law of attraction kind of stuff?
Well, he doesn't give a literal equation, of course.
Yeah.
But Wattles lays out principles he believes are as reliable as, scientific laws.
Okay.
And the comparison to the law of attraction is really spot on. Both of them really emphasize how powerful our thoughts can be in shaping our reality.
Right.
But Wattles takes it further. It's not just about wishing for riches. It's about aligning your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions in this really specific way.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued, still a little skeptical,
Ugh.
intrigued. So let's get into one of the book's like central concepts, this idea of thought as creative power. Wattles is like really into this.
Okay, yeah.
And he talks about this thing called formless substance, which, think of it as this kind of universal energy
Okay.
that that responds to our thoughts.
Yeah.
It like molds itself into the things we focus on.
Right. Interesting.
So what if I'm like constantly thinking about winning the lottery?
Yeah.
The universe is just going to poof, make it happen.
Well, not exactly that simple.
Okay.
But Wattles' idea of formless substance is fascinating. He sees it as the raw material of the universe,
Okay.
constantly shifting, responding to our thought. It's almost like we're sculpting our reality, with our minds.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of get that.
And this is a key point, he acknowledges action is crucial too.
Okay. So it's not enough to just like sit there and wish for it.
Exactly. You can't just wish for something. You have to actually take action.
Right.
But it has to be inspired action, that's in alignment with your vision.
So it's like that's saying thoughts become things, but with like an extra emphasis on actually doing the work too.
Yes, exactly. And what's really remarkable is that Wattles, remember, he was writing back in 1910. He was essentially describing what we now see in, concepts like manifestation or the law of attraction. This idea that by focusing our thoughts and our beliefs, we can influence our reality.
Right.
It's a concept that continues to intrigue and inspire people even today.
It's crazy how these ideas from like over a century ago can still resonate with us. But let's be real for a sec. What about those people who, seem to get wealthy through, well, maybe not so ethical means? Does Waddles address that at all?
He does, and it's actually one of the more insightful parts of the book, I think.
Okay, how so?
Well, he argues that wealth that you gain through, cutthroat competition, what he calls the competitive plane, it's never truly fulfilling. And it's not lasting. He acknowledges, that some people do amass wealth through manipulation, exploitation.
Right.
But he believes those gains are fleeting, and ultimately they they lead to unhappiness. Real wealth, lasting wealth, comes from creating genuine value and contributing to the well-being of others, he says.
That's a pretty powerful perspective. And what I find really interesting about Waddles' approach is that he goes beyond just positive thinking. He highlights the importance of gratitude. Like, gratitude is essential for aligning yourself with this flow of abundance.
Yeah.
It's almost as if gratitude is like this power move,
I love that way of putting it. And you know what? Modern psychology actually supports this.
Oh, really?
Studies have shown that practicing gratitude leads to a more positive outlook, increased resilience, and even it can actually improve goal achievement.
Right.
It's like by acknowledging what we already have, we open ourselves up to receive even more.
So maybe those gratitude journals that everyone's talking about, maybe they actually work.
They just might. But remember, Waddles doesn't stop at gratitude. He's a huge advocate for taking action. For our listener, it's about aligning actions with beliefs and visions.
Okay.
Think of it as inspired action.
Fueled by a deep-seated belief in your ability to create the life you truly want.
Okay, so I think I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
It's not just about wishing for wealth. It's about cultivating that mindset that supports success. And then taking focused action. But Waddles also talks about this thing, action without competition. He suggests that we shouldn't aim to beat others.
Interesting.
But rather focus on creating value that benefits everyone. And he has this great quote. He says, "Give more in use value than you take in cash value." Now, I don't know. That sounds kind of utopian to me, doesn't it? Can that really work in today's world?
It's a challenging concept for sure. It really pushes us to reconsider our conventional ideas about success. But it's interesting how it lines up with a lot of modern conversations about, ethical business practices, conscious capitalism, things like that.
Right.
There are actually real-world examples of companies that are operating on these principles.
Fairness, sustainability, creating win-win situations for everyone involved.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it seems like Waddles was really onto something with this idea that that abundance isn't this finite pie that we're all fighting over. It's something that we can collaboratively create.
Absolutely. He encourages a shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Instead of viewing wealth as something to be hoarded or thought over, he's suggesting that we can actually all prosper by focusing on creating value and contributing to the well-being of others.
That's a refreshing perspective, I think. Okay, so we've talked about some of these core concepts, but what about the practical side of things?
Waddles actually gets pretty specific about the actions that he believes are key to achieving success.
Okay, so let's get into those. I'm really curious to hear what this 1910 Guide to Success actually recommends.
Well, first off, he advises us to always be focusing on increase and advancement in everything we do, not settling for the status quo,
Right.
but constantly looking for ways to improve.
Yeah, that's a pretty timeless piece of advice, I'd say. Always be growing.
Absolutely. And he also stresses the importance of surrounding yourself with positive influences. Now, I know this one can be a bit tricky in today's world,
Right.
but the idea is to be mindful of the energy that you let into your life.
It's about surrounding yourself with those people who uplift you and encourage you.
Exactly. And this next one might surprise you. Waddles suggests to never, ever speak of failure or hard times. Now, we know life has its ups and downs.
Yeah, of course.
But he believed that dwelling on negativity just attracts more of it.
So it's about choosing to focus on the positive.
Yes.
Even when you're faced with challenges, not pretending those difficulties don't exist, but approaching them with a solutions-oriented mindset.
Precisely. And finally, he advises that we should do each day's work to the best of our ability with a vision of success firmly in mind.
It's like a reminder to bring your full presence.
Yes.
And your intention to everything you do. To approach each task with a sense of purpose and a vision for the future that you're creating.
Exactly. So as you can see, while some of his language might feel a bit a bit dated,
Sure.
many of Waddle's core principles are remarkably relevant even today. The power of visualization, the importance of a positive mindset, and the emphasis on taking aligned action.
It's amazing how ideas from over a century ago can still be so powerful and so relevant.
Right.
But before we move on, I want to hear from you, our listener. What's standing out to you so far? What's piqued your curiosity, or what's making you think differently? Share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear from you.
You know, picking up where we left off, it's funny how some of Waddle's advice, well, I get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
It might raise a few eyebrows today, like that whole surround yourself only with positive influences bit.
Yeah, that one was definitely standing out to me.
Right.
It's great to have a supportive network, obviously, but like cutting off everyone who's ever had a bad day seems a bit extreme.
A little bit, yeah.
And what about that thing about never talking about failure or hard times? It feels like kind of the opposite of, the whole authenticity thing everyone's talking about these days.
You're so right. I think it's important to approach some of Waddle's advice with a modern lens.
Right.
Taking into account what we know now about psychology and how people actually interact.
Yeah, yeah.
His emphasis on positivity was probably a reaction to like the negativity that was so common in his time.
Right.
But today we know that it's actually important to process and learn from those challenges. And bottling up negative emotions, not healthy.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So it's not about pretending that hard times don't exist, right?
Exactly.
It's about choosing how we respond to them, finding those opportunities for growth.
Yes. Even within those difficult situations.
Yeah, exactly. And with that whole surrounding yourself with positive people, it's more about, just being aware of the energy you're letting in, right? You don't have to cut people off, but you can choose to, limit your exposure to the folks who are constantly bringing you down or, reinforcing those negative beliefs.
It's about creating that supportive, inspiring environment for yourself.
Right. Okay. That reframing definitely makes more sense.
Good.
But, even with those updates, some people might still find Waddle's ideas a little,
yeah.
I don't know, a little out there.
Okay.
Can we really manifest riches just by thinking about them?
That's where that balance of thought and action comes in. He's not saying to just passively wish or daydream.
Okay.
He's highlighting the power of cultivating a mindset that's oriented towards success.
So it's more about using visualization and positive thinking as fuel for your efforts.
Yes.
To keep you motivated and focused on those goals.
Precisely. Aligning your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions. He believed that by focusing on the positive, by seeing yourself as already successful, you create this mental and emotional state that attracts those opportunities and gives you the power to take effective action.
So no magic wands involved. Just a powerful mix of mindset and hustle.
Exactly.
Okay, I can definitely get behind that. But I got to admit, I'm still struggling with this formless substance idea.
I get that. It's a very abstract concept.
Yeah, it sounds a little, mystical to me.
Well, think of it as the underlying creative energy of the universe, the potential from which all things come from.
Okay.
Does that make it a little more relatable?
Yeah, I think so.
Imagine a blank canvas, and we're projecting our reality onto it. Through our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So it's not about trying to control some external force, but more about harnessing that creative power within ourselves and in the world around us.
Yes.
So how do we tap into that creative power, according to Waddles?
He puts a lot of emphasis on gratitude. He sees it as a really powerful way to align ourselves with the flow of abundance. Okay. By focusing on what we're thankful for, we shift our attention to the positive, and that attracts more positive experiences. It's like gratitude acts as a magnet, drawing those good things into our lives.
Interesting. So gratitude becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy then.
In a way.
The more grateful we are, the more we have to be grateful for. But isn't there a danger there of getting complacent though? If we're always focused on what we have, shouldn't we also be striving for more, for growth, for improvement?
You're absolutely right. Gratitude isn't about settling or becoming passive. It's about recognizing and appreciating the good as a foundation for further growth.
So it's gratitude is the fuel that propels us forward.
Yeah.
And a clear vision and focused action are like the steering wheel in the engine.
I love that. It really captures the balance that Wattles is talking about. It's about appreciating what we have, but also having that burning desire for more. Taking inspired action, not just from a place of wanting, but from a place of already having, already being.
That's pretty deep. But how does Wattles square all this with, the reality that so many people are actually facing hardships and scarcity?
That's a great point. He addresses this by emphasizing the importance of shifting away from a competitive mindset to a more creative one. He believed that competition, while it might lead to temporary gains for some,
Right.
ultimately it just creates this scarcity mentality that holds everyone back.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. Waddell suggested that when we're focused on creating value and contributing to the well-being of others, we tap into the source of abundance that benefits everyone.
That definitely resonates today, especially with all the talk about collaboration and, social impact. But does Wattles actually give us any concrete advice on how to make that shift from competition to creation?
He does. He talks about focusing on giving more in what he calls use value than you take in cash value.
Okay, break that down for me. What does he mean by use value?
It's the inherent value something has.
Right.
That goes beyond just how much money it's worth. Like, say you're selling a product, right?
Right.
It's not just about the profit you make, it's about how that product improves the customer's life.
So creating win-win situations.
Exactly. And this can apply to all areas of life, not just business.
Right, right.
Approaching every interaction with this intention of creating value, of making sure the other person is better off for having, interacted with you.
I really like that. It's a subtle shift, but it's powerful too.
Right.
But can that really lead to financial success in the long run? Won't there always be someone who's willing to, cut corners, put profit above everything else?
That's a valid concern for sure. But Wattles argues that when you operate from that creative mindset, from that place of abundance and generosity, it actually leads to greater and more sustainable success.
So it's not about being naive or ignoring, the realities of business. It's more about approaching things with a different set of values, right?
Exactly. And he believed this approach actually attracts like-minded people and creates opportunities that wouldn't exist in that cutthroat, competitive environment.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. But how does this relate to this idea of acting in a certain way? Wattles talks about that a lot in the book.
He's referring to aligning your actions with your beliefs and your vision. Every action, no matter how small, should be infused with that intention of, creating value and moving toward your goals.
So it's not just about taking massive action, but about, intentional action.
Yes, even in the smallest details of our lives.
Okay.
It's about bringing that creative mindset, that faith, that purpose into everything you do.
Okay, now I'm really getting it. It's not just about positive thinking. It's a complete shift in how you look at life. Right. So for someone who's, really stuck in that scarcity mindset, how can they start making that shift?
Wattles suggests starting with gratitude. By really focusing on what we already have, we cultivate an awareness of that abundance that's already there.
So instead of focusing on what we lack, we start appreciating what we have. And that opens us up to receive even more.
Yes, precisely. He also emphasizes surrounding yourself with those supportive and inspiring influences, people who reinforce your belief in yourself and your ability to create the life you want.
It's like creating this positive feedback loop, then, where your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, your environment, it all works together to support your growth and your success.
Exactly. But, I still kind of struggle with completely letting go of that competitive mindset.
Yeah, me too.
Isn't there, a healthy level of competition?
Yeah, doesn't it push us to do our best?
Wattles distinguishes between healthy striving and that cutthroat kind of competition that creates fear and scarcity and exploitation.
So it's about focusing on your personal best, always trying to improve and grow, rather than trying to, beat other people.
Exactly. True success isn't about beating others. It's about exceeding your own expectations and contributing to the collective good.
There's a lot of wisdom in that. But even with the most positive mindset, life throws curveballs, right?
Yeah.
So what does Wattles say about dealing with those setbacks?
He emphasizes unwavering faith and perseverance. He believed that setbacks are temporary,
Okay.
and if we stay focused on our vision and keep taking action, we will overcome those obstacles and achieve our goals.
So it's about trusting the process,
Yeah.
even when things get tough.
Exactly.
Remembering that every challenge, has the potential for opportunity.
Yes. And he also talked about maintaining that grateful attitude even when things are hard,
Okay.
because gratitude helps you stay connected to that source of abundance.
Right.
And it empowers you to see those challenges as opportunities for growth.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's like Waddles is suggesting a totally different way of looking at life.
He is. He wants us to move from a place of fear and scarcity to a place of faith and abundance and creative power.
He believed that was the key, not just to financial success, but to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Exactly. He saw wealth as a tool for self-expression,
Okay.
for living a more abundant and joyful life,
Hmm.
and for contributing to the well-being of others.
I'm really impressed by how relevant and deep these ideas are. It's a message that's as important today as it was back then.
Absolutely.
So how have his ideas been received over the years? Has the science of getting rich had a lasting impact?
It has, in maybe subtle but definitely profound ways. A lot of his core principles, while they may not always be directly attributed to him,
Right.
they've been echoed and expanded upon in modern self-help and personal development.
Ouch.
Things like the emphasis on visualization, positive thinking, the power of belief. These can be traced back to his work and the growing focus on ethical business practices.
Right.
And this idea of creating win-win situations for everyone involved, that's connected to Waddles too.
Wow. He really was ahead of his time.
Absolutely. And his work continues to inspire people to create lives of abundance and fulfillment.
So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive, what are some key takeaways they can start using in their own lives?
I'd say the most important takeaway is the power of a shift in mindset.
Okay.
By embracing gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
by focusing on the abundance that's already there, and by approaching everything we do with this intention of creating value. We tap into a source of creativity and prosperity that goes far beyond financial gain.
It's not just about getting rich. It's about living rich.
Exactly.
Right.
And remember, this is not about passively wishing or daydreaming.
Right.
It's about aligning your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions to create the life you truly desire.
Okay, I'm definitely feeling inspired to put these principles into action. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, we want to hear from you. What's resonating with you most? What were your aha moments? Share your thoughts with us. We always love hearing your perspectives. As we wrap up our deep dive into the science of getting rich, it's worth pointing out that some people might find Waddles' focus on individual wealth
Yeah.
a little bit, I don't know, concerning.
It's a valid point. Some folks argue that this emphasis could lead to, like, a disregard for social responsibility
Right, exactly.
and could even make economic inequality worse.
Yeah, I could see that. It does feel like there's a risk of, people misinterpreting his ideas or applying them in ways that could actually widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Exactly. We have to remember the historical context.
Yeah, for sure.
Waddles was writing at a time when industrial capitalism was booming.
Right.
And while he definitely talked about, ethical business practices and creating value for others, his main focus was on individual empowerment
Okay.
and wealth creation. So maybe it's on us as, modern readers
Right.
to interpret and apply his ideas in a way that fits with our values today.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So instead of throwing out the whole thing, we can take those principles, those core principles about, the power of thought, gratitude, inspired action,
Right.
and integrate them into a broader understanding of social responsibility
Absolutely.
and economic equity.
It's not about pretending those systemic issues don't exist.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we can still cultivate personal abundance
Yeah.
and create positive change within those systems.
I think that's a really important point. But I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
That thoughts create reality thing still makes me kind of uncomfortable. Isn't there a danger
Yeah.
of blaming people for their situations
Right.
if we say, oh, you're just not thinking the right thoughts?
That's such an important point. And it's where things can get really tricky.
Yeah.
Our thoughts definitely influence our actions and our results, but we can't oversimplify things.
Right.
It's not all about individual agency.
It's a complex mix of, individual choices and systemic factors.
Exactly. So we're not saying that people are struggling financially just because they're,
Right.
thinking negative thoughts.
Right.
But we're recognizing that our thoughts can either limit us or empower us. Cultivating a more positive and creative mindset can open up possibilities for change.
Right. And let's not forget that Waddles is all about action, right?
Absolutely. It's not about just wishing for things to be different. It's about taking action, inspired action in alignment with your vision and your beliefs.
So it's a two-pronged approach. Then you got to do the inner work, cultivate that mindset.
Right.
But then you got to do the outer work too. Take those real-world steps.
Exactly. Both are essential if you want to make lasting change. It's fascinating, though. Some of Waddle's ideas actually connect with modern science and philosophy.
Oh, really? Tell me more about that.
Well, his idea of formless substance, it has some interesting parallels with quantum physics. Some of those newer theories suggest that the universe isn't made up of separate objects, but is this interconnected web of energy.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Right.
So he was kind of intuitively tapping into something that science is only now starting to understand.
It seems that way. And his focus on the power of belief and expectation, that lines up with research in neuroscience and psychology, too.
Interesting.
They've shown that our beliefs can have a huge impact on how we see things, how we act, even our physical health.
So this idea that our thoughts can shape reality, it's not just a mystical thing.
Right.
Then there's actually scientific evidence to back it up.
To a certain extent, yes. Of course, it's not as simple as just, thinking your way to riches.
Right, of course.
Or a perfect relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's growing evidence that our thoughts and beliefs and expectations really can influence our actions and what happens to us.
That's pretty empowering.
Right. It suggests we have more control over our lives than we might realize.
We're not just, passive bystanders.
Exactly. We are active creators. But, it's important to be realistic, too. Waddles doesn't fully address those systemic issues that contribute to things like poverty and inequality.
Right. He's really focused on the individual.
Exactly.
So while his work is really valuable, for personal growth and understanding wealth creation, it's important to see it within that larger context.
Of social justice and economic equity.
Yeah, I think that's really key.
It's not about denying those systemic issues.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we can still create personal abundance and work for positive change within those systems.
So it's like taking a holistic approach,
Really,
right? You're working on both the individual and the systemic level.
Yes, working towards a more just and equitable world.
I really like that. Okay, so for our listener who's been with us this whole time, what's the final thought we want to leave them with?
I think it's this. Waddle's book, The Science of Getting Rich, it offers a really thought-provoking approach to wealth creation and personal empowerment. But ultimately, it's up to each of us to figure out what it means and how to apply it to our own lives.
In a way that aligns with our values and helps create a better world for everyone.
Exactly. And remember, listener, this is just the beginning of the exploration.
Right.
Keep asking questions, keep growing, and keep that gratitude flowing.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Until then, happy exploring.
Yeah, happy exploring.